Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny and today's video is going to be a softly spoken have a look through some of my grandmother's lace. I would actually say it was my great-grandmother's and possibly even older than that. My mother has very slowly been giving me a lot of the things, like the family heirlooms, that she has kept, and I think now is sort of trying to downsize a little bit and declutter as she gets a bit older. She obviously knows very well that I am an incredibly sentimental person, and that I won't throw anything out. So instead of giving things to my brother, she's giving them to me for me to store, because my brother would just give them back to her and tell them he didn't want them in his house, because there is a substantial amount of different things. So I'm very lucky enough that my family kept a lot of things from obviously a long time ago, a few hundred years. When my grandmother died, she was a lovely lady from Surrey, and when she passed away, my mum and my aunt and uncle sort of went through and split a lot of their things. And I remember the day that they did her bedroom, which was a horribly sad day, and they came across boxes and boxes of lace and dresses and things. Now, I think some of them were probably sold, and my aunt has some and my uncle has some. And this is a little collection of the things that she's given to me. And actually some of them are incredibly delicate. I'm not sure what this is. Is it? I don't know, but as you can see, it's sort of all fraying. So it needs to be, probably barely touched really. I've got some soot on my hand from the fire. Yeah, so not sure what that is. I mean, there's lots of pins in the side, but yeah, I don't know what that was from. As a child, how I spent a lot of my weekends was going through my mum's things. My mum has a beautiful wooden jewellery box that she was given from when she was little, and she had all kinds of things like her milk teeth and different bits of jewellery. My grandfather worked in Africa, and he had left her and given her and my auntie, when they were younger, little cut topazes and things like that. So she keeps all of those still in her jewellery box. And I used to spend hours just going through her things with her. And so this was one of them. And I don't know whether I don't know the story behind it. And I'm not even sure what it is. It says love tokens, and it's been embroidered onto the front, and on the back it says MKK. I'm not entirely sure who that is, because it could be one of the surnames is Kirkland, so it could be dating back to Kirkland, but my great-grandmother was Rose, so it's definitely not her, so I'm not sure whose this is, but my mum probably knows. And it says love tokens inside, and it's just little empty bits of fabric. It's very sweet. But it's one of those things, I don't know where that came from or what it is. There's this little handkerchief, which most likely was embroidered by my great-grandmother or grandmother. It looks like she looks like a little Dutch maid. But she's got what looks like it's either a watering can or a little perfume bottle or something, and little flowers, and that's so sweet. And it's so nice to see something like this, because I actually spend quite a lot of time also doing embroidery, and it's something that I've always had quite a bit of passion about. And not that I'm that good at it, but I like to do it. And I've been teaching my eldest daughter to do it too over the years. So it's nice to know that they can survive for that long. And this is very cute. Not sure what this is. It's a little crocheted pot. And I cannot knit, and I wish I could. And I think my stepmother-in-law taught me how to knit a very simple scarf pattern. And I'd gone to a shop to buy all of the wool and the needles. And while I was in New Zealand, I was doing a lot of knitting, and I got halfway through doing my scarf, which I was doing in alpaca wool, and then came back to Europe and forgot what to do. So I don't even know where that bag is. So it's somewhere up in my attic. I'd love to get that out and finish it. This is another little thing, and it's leather, but very, very thin leather. And I think this is well, it looks like it could be a pin cushion, but it's so old and frayed and falling apart. So I probably shouldn't. I mean, my other half thinks it's mad that I'm keeping things like this, because they've got no sort of, well, they certainly don't have any value, but I don't know any story behind them. I'm not sure whether my mum would know, because I'm imagining this was my grandmother's. And it's sort of tatty and falling apart, but I could never part with these types of things. But yeah, it's a bit sad really, because they sort of sit, excuse me, I dropped something. They sort of sit in a box up in my attic, and only really come out really. And I think my kids are too young for me to bring them out and show them, because they're quite, especially my 4.5-year-old, she's pretty rough and tumble. Here's another piece of lace. Now, from what my mother's told me, a lot of these were made within my family. So not only are these quite sort of, you know, beautiful and delicate anyway, but they're extra special because they would have been made by my grandmother or great-grandmother, or even great-great-grandmother, a long time ago. So this would appear to be like a kind of giant doily, it looks like, to sort of put on a table. I'd say, in fact, that's actually something I can imagine was on a table at my grandmother's house at one stage in time. My grandma's house was, she had a beautiful house in Surrey, and I think I said this, I don't think I said in a previous video, but my grandmother's house had different smells, and I still to this day remember the smell of every single room in her house and every area of her garden. So her house would just smell like, as you walked in, it would smell like an old house, but not in a horrible way, in a nice way. The downstairs loo smelled like cat litter and her cat, and I could still smell that now. She had a drawing room, which I was never allowed into, like the dining room. I don't think I ever ate in there. I was barely allowed in there, because it had like a lot of the family things and all of my grandparents' nice things, and obviously they had 10 grandchildren, so yeah, we were never allowed to play in that room. But I still remember what it smells like polished wood. And so the garden would, I can't explain the smells of like through the house to you, because I can't put a finger on what they are. But the garden, she had a big eucalyptus tree. So as you walked along to the right-hand side of the garden, it smelled like damp eucalyptus, but almost tropical smelling. And then because the garage wasn't far from there, you could sort of smell like the oil from my grandfather's cars. So you could smell like oil and eucalyptus. And then you walked further along and there was all the rose bushes, but she didn't deadhead the roses, so when the roses would drop, they would sort of start to decompose on the flower beds. And so that area smelt like rose perfume. It was a bit like, almost like potpourri. And then all around the greenhouse, even when there were no tomatoes in it, smelt like tomato vines. And then down the back, it wasn't a very nice smell, but that was where my grandfather had a lot of his fires in the garden, and that smelt like damp leaves and old fire, like sort of charcoaly ash. And that was where all the big slugs and the newts were to be found. And every time I went to my grandparents' house, I would catch the newts. And then I found one when I was little, and my mum always told me leave them because they're a different temperature to you, and I must have been so tiny. I was probably only about 4 years old. And I'd gone up there and I caught one, and I remember my mum saying, "You'll kill it, so you must let it go." And I didn't, and I held it in my hand, and we lived in Devon, so we had to drive all the way from Surrey to Devon, and I sat in the car and I had held this little newt all the way home, and then when I got home it was dead. And I just remember being completely heartbroken at what I'd done. Yeah, so it's a sad story. Oh look, there's another one of these things. This one's actually in much better condition, and it's beautiful purple. It has pins in it, so I think it is just a pin cushion. Can you see how purple that is? It's a beautiful colour. I literally don't have one thing in my house that is that colour, but it's really lovely. This was my mum's, and I can't tell you how many times as a child I have taken these pins in and out. I mean, hundreds and thousands of times. In fact, so much so that I would very likely say I was the last person to put those pins in whatever pattern this was. That would have been me. Yeah, it couldn't have been anyone else really. And I used to play with this. We didn't have, obviously, I'm not really old, but we didn't have any computer games or anything when I was little, and there was no internet. So going through my mum's things at the weekend was, something that I did for fun. This is very soft. Very old. It's almost like silk. It's not lace, and it's very stained. I'm not sure what that is, but it's very delicate, so I don't play with that one too much. Another little handkerchief. And again with the K on it. Oh, and that's really beautiful. I hope that you can see it clearly enough, but they've hand stitched a K into it, so it'll be Kirkland then. It'll be Granny Kirkland. I find things like this so inspiring because it just makes me want to get some handkerchiefs and to do some embroidery on them. But it's so neat and tidy, and mine would, in fact, I think that's actually what I showed you was the back. That's the front. So pretty. And here's another one in pink. That's, I believe, the front. I don't know who M is. I'd have to ask. But it could be, that could be from my aunt. My aunt's first name begins with M. And she's in her 70s, so it's very possible that was made for her for like her christening or something. In which case I should find out, and if it is, I'll send it to one of my cousins. It's just another little one with no embroidery on it. Now this is very cool. They're very soft gloves. So it's like I said, there were lots of beautiful dresses and things. I mean, I won't try and put it on because, I don't know. Maybe it is my size. No, but my mum has the teeniest, tiniest hands, and I don't. I've got quite big, clumsy hands. But there's a beautiful glove. It's stamped on the inside, but just by the name of the shop that they were purchased from, there's 2 of those. There's no name to say whose they were. Sweet little gloves. Oh, look. It's a tiny, tiny, tiny little dress for a baby, possibly a christening dress. And I noticed there that it's obviously had a hole in it at one stage, and so it's been repaired very delicately, using a very interesting stitch method, which I've not seen before. So it's had some wear and tear. It's got a very sweet little at the back where it ties. How so cute is that? I wish I'd had that for my girls. I mean, I didn't have them christened because I've been christened, but I'm not a practicing Christian. I would say I'm agnostic, if anything. And I kind of wanted my kids to choose their own path. These days, it could be anything. So we haven't had them christened, but we have sort of chosen godparents, and they know who they are. And at some stage, we will have some form of ceremony, but I'm not sure what yet. There's another one. And so, yeah, my grandmother's name began with an H, so that's very possibly for her. Hers. Which is lovely to have. It's just another one of these with no embroider on it. Another one. Just a very plain one. Some of these, like, imagine it's just a handkerchief. Like, I don't think this can't have had much of a value. So they're probably sort of giggling wherever they are at the fact that we've kept these so long. It would be kind of like us keeping a Primark sock of, okay, one of my socks in 100 years' time from Primark. And they're probably thinking, why have they still got those? They weren't anything. Just another very delicate little one. And another. It's all right, we're nearly at the end. Okay, so we've got another box. And this one is called Pyramid Handkerchiefs. A two-tile product. And inside the box is R. These begin with, so it's blue for a boy, and it has an R on it. Never been used, obviously, still in its exact packaging, so these were probably brought for a christening, like a christening gift. I think it's a lovely little idea for a christening gift. Who is R? My grandfather was called Tommy. So I don't know who R is. Oh, yes I do. It's Rose, of course. My grandmother Rose. So that'd be Granny Rose's. Why? I think my daughter the other day told me blue used to be for a girl, so maybe that's what that is. It's another sweet little embroidered one. But no no lettering on it. And then we've got 2 that have C on it. And truly, I don't know who any C's are, so don't know who they could belong to. But that's amazing if that's Granny Rose, because obviously my granny died when I was 11 and she was 72, which is awfully young. So yeah, so these would be close to 100 years old. They are born for her, given to her for her birth. And it smells like an antique shop. I think it's a very standard antique smell. I don't know if any of you guys go to antique shops, but antique shops always have a very sort of old, musty smell, and that's what they smell like, but it's not a horrible smell, it's a lovely smell. Here's another little H, and that would be for my grandmother. Again, unused. And then we've got, there's another funny little doily. Not sure what this is, but it looks like edging. It's probably part of one of the dresses that they found in these boxes, and it's incredibly detailed and incredibly old. So I'll pop that there. This one feels like it could fall apart at any moment, so I don't want to unfold it too much. I mean, you can see how it's discoloured. I mean, this is white over the years, so, and it's so soft and yeah, very thin, sort of just naturally, and you can see actually it's started to kind of fall apart. These sort of things should be in one of those like big frames, and then I should have to wear white gloves to be touching them really. And you can find all these kind of things in car boot sales in the UK. My mum, so for her, my mum's retired. She was a nurse, and she retired a few years ago because we moved to France, and so she couldn't nurse in France. And then they moved back to the UK, and so now my mum has always, I mean, even when I was tiny, and my mum had me quite young, she was always really interested in antiques, and her house is full of antique books, and so she goes to all different car boot sales and charity shops and things and picks up antiques and sells them on. And she does it quite successfully for her sort of passion, for her hobby and passion. And so she once she'd found a chest a big chest, and she'd bought me the chest. I'm sorry, they're a bit dusty, so I feel like I'm going to sneeze. She bought me the chest as a gift. And then when she got the chest home, it was full of what she thought was just fabric, and she spoke to the man and said, and she goes, "Oh, what's all this inside?" And he said, "It's nothing, it's just rubbish, it's come out of the attic." And my mum was like, "Okay, brilliant." And so anyway, she left it in her sort of garage, shed for a while, not thinking of it, because she had no intention to do anything with the fabric, and she had no intention of doing up the box for me for a while, because she wasn't going to see me for ages. And when she did finally come to open the box and to renovate the box, it had been maybe a year or so. She opened the box and she started getting out what she thought was all the junk fabric and picking through it to see if there was anything I wanted, because I do a lot of quilt work. And she realised it was all like costumes, and they weren't costumes, they were real, and I can't remember what they were. They were all different ones, but they were all different dresses and pieces of clothing and stuff. So she got hold of a specialist, and the specialist then told her that they were all worth quite a lot of money. And she wanted to find the owners of the clothing, but it had been such a long, to sort of say, look, I mean, because she bought the box for a couple of pounds and the clothing inside was worth thousands. And so she went on a bit of a hunt to try and find the owner of the box, because she felt terrible that she'd paid a couple of pounds first and without him realising what was inside it properly. But obviously it had been such a long time and it wasn't, she hadn't bought it from a shop. So she ended up auctioning it because she had no need for it. But I would have loved it to her to have found the rightful owner of it all, but I guess they didn't even, wasn't something that they cared about. But it would have been nice if it could have been reunited with them and they could have sold it on. But that's the thing, so many things like that, like these. I mean, like I said, I can't remember the story. Look at that, that was definitely part of their dress wear. I'm assuming this is what it would have sort of been like, over something, over a little dress. But yeah, like the stories just get forgotten, don't they? And I'm pretty good at trying to figure out things when I'm at my mum's house, and I ask lots of questions about different antiques she has around the place that I know were parts of my family's, you know, sort of heirlooms and things like that. But these I really haven't asked about, and I should do, because I just don't know. And I should go through the photos and see if I can find them wearing any of them. But look at that, how cute that is. I wonder if lace or anything will come back into fashion. But it is really dusty and it's making me very sneezy. Oh, what's this? Oh, sweet, that looks almost like a little christening-y type thing, or it could be to tie around a little dress. That's got little, they almost look like oak leaves on them. It's actually quite a lot here, quite a lot more. Oh, these are so pretty. That's quite a square one. Imagine the ladies back in the day sort of wearing these as part of their decoration over a much plainer dress. I wish I knew. I wish I was old. Of course I wish I was older when my grandmother passed, but I wish I was a bit older so I could have seen a lot of the other things that had come out, like the actual whole clothing. That's the one that's been used, it's stained. Amazing to think they would have carried these with them and worn them all those many years ago, and then now they're sat in the south of France being shown to you. I bet they wouldn't have been able to envisage that through the marvel of internet and technology. But I think going through these has inspired me, and I'm going to get some plain handkerchiefs, and I'm going to do some embroidery of my own, but oh, they're just so perfect, and I couldn't do them justice. Oh, look. Is it a hat? It's inside out. Do you know what else it could be? No, surely not. Can't be a hat. Could be. I don't know what else. I don't know what else that would be. I should, next time I'm at my mum's house, I'll take my camera and I'll do some videos for you there, because her house is full of really cool, intricate things. Actually, when we purchased this house, the old lady who had it before us had said that she didn't want anything that they'd left upstairs. And we found a big box, but unfortunately she'd turned into quite a mad cat lady. She should have had these 5 very unfriendly cats living in the house with her, and she was 94. She worked for NATO, and she had done. She'd never had any children, and so when her husband had died, they built the house that we live in now, and they built it in 1991. So the house isn't too old, but her husband had died. I mean, we bought the house 3 years ago, and he died about 4 years prior to us buying the house. And so she was 94 and on her own, and she couldn't drive anymore. And we don't live near shops, so people were having to bring her things, but because she'd had no children, she had no relatives to bring her food, so the neighbours were bringing her food. And in fact, the estate agent selling the house for her was taking her to all of her doctor's appointments. It was awfully, awfully sad. A lot of my friends don't have children and won't have children. I mean, I've got 3, and often you sort of ask them, are you going to? And a lot of my friends are very career orientated and won't have kids, and I've always thought that's absolutely fine. And but when she was on her own, with just no one, her husband had passed, and so all of her things in her house she didn't have any need for because she was about to pass, and she had no one to give them to. She didn't leave much here. I know that she was selling quite a lot of it, and the estate agent was assisting her with selling it. But anyway, so these feral cats everywhere had peed all over the house. I mean, we bought it in an absolute state. And so there was this big leather suitcase that we sort of dragged out of some hidden cupboard. And the cats had obviously been peeing on this suitcase for years. So it all soaked through the leather. And so there were lace gowns and little baby things and baby shoes, which were probably hers, if not maybe even her mother's. But it was so completely ruined by cat wee. The smell was insane, and I just sort of wanted to try and wash them, and I asked my mum, because obviously she's got lots of experience with antiques and things. She's like, if you even try and wash them by hand, they're just going to fall apart. They're completely worthless to anyone now, and even if you wanted to try and clean them up and try and find the old lady to give them back to her, would just be completely pointless. Because they're completely ruined, and I thought that was really sad. That's why I'll endeavour to make sure that my children know to sort of, like my mum has me, look after my things. But I suppose you won't really care, will you, when you pass on? But I like to think that they know that we're keeping some of their things safe. And I'll pass these to my girls, but obviously, as everything passes, it's split in half, split in half, split in half, and then you just forget, don't you? And eventually, one of my great-great-grandchildren will be given that, and they'll be like, oh, well, what is that? And throw it away. But hey-ho, that's how life is. So that's it basically. That was the little pile of things I wanted to show you. I hope that you're enjoying some of my show and tell videos. I've got so many different things to sort of go through with you. If that's the sort of thing that you're watching these videos for. Anyway, like and comment, and I will see you again soon.